On Thanksgiving night, my daughter-in-law's father poured an entire glass of expensive bourbon straight into my face. She stood there giggling. "Here you go, you worthless old bastard. Know your place." Everyone expected me to explode in rage or break down in humiliation. Instead, I calmly wiped my face, smiled politely, and dialed one number. They had no idea that, in that exact moment, I had just unleashed a nightmare on their pathetic little lives. One they would never escape. Before listening to this story, we have an important announcement for you. Unfortunately, we are discontinuing this channel, and it will be deleted soon. If you want to continue listening to new stories, subscribe to our new channel, Cold Revenge. The link to it will be in the collaboration with this video, in the description of this video, and in the comments. Thank you for your attention. My name is Harold Bennett. I am 68 years old, and I live in Austin, Texas. Same house I bought back in 1989. For 35 years, I owned a restaurant called Bennett's Southern Table. Built it from nothing. Turned it into something people drove across the state to visit. Sold it 2 years ago for a good price, thinking I had earned a quiet retirement. Funny how life laughs at your plans. I should tell you about my son, Travis. He is 41 now. Works as a middle manager at some insurance company downtown. When he was a boy, he used to sit on a stool in my restaurant kitchen, watching me work. "Dad, teach me how to make the brisket," he would say, swinging his legs that could not reach the floor. Those were good years, simple years. Then he met Shannon. She came into his life like a summer storm. Beautiful, electric, impossible to ignore. They married fast, too fast. I remember standing at their wedding, watching her smile at me with those perfect teeth, and feeling something cold settle in my stomach. Call it instinct. Call it a father's paranoia. Whatever it was, I ignored it. That was my first mistake. Shannon Price, she kept her maiden name for professional reasons, is 38 years old and has the kind of face that belongs on magazine covers. Behind those green eyes, though, there is a calculator running constantly, adding up what everyone around her is worth. She figured out my worth pretty quickly. 2 years ago, right after I sold the restaurant, Travis called me. His voice had that particular tone, the one he uses when Shannon is standing next to him, coaching every word. "Dad, we are in a tough spot. Shannon's company downsized. My commission got cut. We need somewhere to stay. Just temporary, you know. 6 months tops." What was I supposed to say? He is my son, my only child. The boy who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during late night drives home from the restaurant. Of course, I said. This is your home too. 6 months turned into 12. 12 turned into 18. Somewhere along the way, I stopped being the owner of the house and became what? A tenant, a guest, an inconvenience. It happened gradually, like water wearing down stone. First, Shannon suggested I move to the smaller bedroom, the one in the back, facing the fence instead of the garden. Travis has early conference calls, she explained with that sweet, reasonable voice. The master bedroom is quieter. You understand? I understood. I moved. Then my car disappeared from the driveway. "Dad, you are 68, Travis said, not quite meeting my eyes. The insurance rates for senior drivers are insane. Shannon researched it. We are saving the whole family money. The whole family. As if we were one unit now, with one checking account, mine, and 3 people deciding how to spend it. The power of attorney was Shannon's idea, naturally. She presented it one evening with a stack of papers and a pen that looked expensive. "Harold, it just makes sense," she said, perching on the arm of the couch like a bird settling on a branch. "Bills, medical decisions, investment management. Travis can handle all of it. You have worked so hard your whole life. Let us take care of things now." Travis nodded beside her, that eager-to-please expression on his face, the same look he wore when Shannon picked out his ties, his friends, his opinions. I signed the papers. Looking back, I can see the trap closing around me. But in that moment, I just saw my son asking for my trust. My second mistake. These days, I wake up at 5 in the morning. Old habit from restaurant life. I make coffee in a kitchen that used to be mine. Eat breakfast alone and try to stay out of everyone's way. Shannon rises around 9, floats through the house in silk robes, and treats me like furniture that has not been moved to storage yet. Last week, I was sitting on the back porch, playing a vinyl record, Cold Train, A Love Supreme, when she appeared in the doorway. "Harold, we need to discuss Thanksgiving." I did not turn around. "What about it?" "My father is coming to visit. He is arriving Wednesday evening and staying through the weekend." Now I looked at her. Shannon's father, Howard Price, is 71 years old and runs some kind of investment company. Every time his name comes up, Shannon's voice gets that proud, polished tone. "I expect you to behave appropriately," she continued. "Daddy has high standards. He is used to a certain level of sophistication." I almost laughed. Almost. "Of course, Shannon. I will try not to embarrass the family." She did not catch the sarcasm. Or maybe she did, and simply did not care. That night, I lay in my narrow bed, in my small room, listening to the house settle around me. I did not know it then, but that visit would change everything. When Wednesday arrived, I watched from the window as a silver Mercedes pulled into my driveway. Howard Price stepped out first, tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of tan that comes from golf courses and yacht decks. He wore a cashmere coat despite the mild Austin weather, and carried a bottle of bourbon like a trophy. Shannon ran to meet him, throwing her arms around his neck. Travis followed, handshake ready, smile rehearsed. Howard's gaze swept over the house, the yard, and finally landed on me, standing in the doorway. His lips curled into something that was not quite a smile, more like a predator spotting prey. Something inside me shuddered, but I pushed the feeling down, straightened my shoulders, and stepped forward. Thanksgiving morning, I was in the kitchen by 6. Old habits. The turkey needed 14 hours of preparation if you wanted it done right. Brining, seasoning, the whole ritual. I had been making this bird for 40 years, back when my own father was still alive, to complain that I used too much sage. The house was quiet. Howard had taken the guest room, the one with the nice bathroom and the view of the pecan trees. Travis and Shannon were still asleep. For a few hours, the kitchen belonged to me again. I stood there, hands covered in butter and herbs, and thought about another Thanksgiving. It must have been 20 years ago, maybe more. Travis was in high school then, gangly and awkward, trying to impress some girl whose name I cannot recall anymore. He had come into the restaurant that morning, even though we were closed for the holiday. He found me in the kitchen, same as now, working on the bird. "Dad, can I help?" We had spent the whole morning together, side by side. He had burned the gravy twice, nearly dropped the cranberry sauce, and somehow managed to get stuffing in his hair. We had laughed until our stomachs hurt. "Thanks, Dad," he had said when we finally sat down to eat. "For teaching me stuff. For, being you." Standing in my kitchen now, I wondered where that boy had gone. What had Shannon done with him? Or had he always been this weak, and I just had not wanted to see it? The memory hurt more than I expected. By noon, the house had come alive with activity. Shannon directed everyone like a general, preparing for battle. Move this table. Adjust those flowers. Make sure the good silverware is polished. Howard sat in my favorite armchair, bourbon already in hand, offering commentary on everything from the furniture arrangement to the modest size of the property. "Not bad for a starter home," he said, swirling his drink. "Shannon tells me you were in the restaurant business." "Owned my own place for 35 years. Ah," he nodded slowly, the way people do when they are pretending to be impressed. "A cook? How practical." I set the turkey on the table. 14 hours of work, and this man called me a cook. Executive chef and owner, actually. Bennett's Southern Table. We were featured in Texas Monthly 3 times. Howard's eyebrows lifted. Never heard of it. But then I rarely eat at local establishments. My clients usually preferred destinations with international recognition. His clients? That is all Howard Price talked about. His clients, his investments, his portfolio returns. Dinner was a performance. Howard dominated every conversation, interrupted every story, contradicted every opinion. When Travis mentioned a project at work, Howard waved dismissively. "Insurance, please. That is not a career, son. That is a waiting room for people who could not make it in real business." Travis just nodded and reached for more wine. I watched my son shrink under his father-in-law's voice. The hunched shoulders, the downcast eyes, the desperate need to please someone who would never be pleased. The conversation turned to investments. Howard spoke about returns and exclusive opportunities with the confidence of a man selling bridges to tourists. I asked a simple question. "What exactly does your company invest in, Howard? What is the primary vehicle?" The table went quiet. Howard's face shifted just for a moment, just a flicker, before that salesman's smile returned. "Complex instruments, Harold. I doubt someone from the hospitality sector would understand the nuances." Shannon's voice cut through. "Dad, he is just jealous. He spent his whole life flipping burgers, and now he cannot stand being around actual success." She turned to me with that cold smile. "Some people cook. Some people build empires. Harold here was never going to be anything more than hired help. Right, Travis?" My son said nothing, just stared at his plate. Howard laughed, a big booming sound. He stood up, walked around the table, and stopped right beside my chair. "You know what, Harold? Shannon is right. You seem confused about your place in this family." He lifted his glass, that expensive bourbon he had brought, and poured it directly onto my face. The liquid burned my eyes, ran down my cheeks like amber tears, soaked into my collar, my shirt. "There you go, old man," Howard said. "A toast to your health." Shannon giggled. "That is what you get, worthless old fool. Know your place." I sat very still. The bourbon dripped from my chin onto the white tablecloth. Travis would not look at me. I reached for my napkin and carefully wiped my face. My hands were not shaking. "Excuse me for a moment." I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I had not called in months. James Holland, an old supplier from my restaurant days, who knew everyone in Austin. "James, it is Harold Bennett. You remember telling me about that lawyer you know, the one who specializes in elder cases. I need his number tonight if possible." Shannon's laughter had died. Howard was frowning. "Yes," I said into the phone. "I would say it is quite urgent." I ended the call and looked up at the 3 faces watching me. Something had shifted inside my chest. Not anger. That would come later. This was colder, clearer. 35 years in the restaurant business had taught me many things. How to stay calm during chaos. How to plan 12 steps ahead. How to smile at someone while calculating exactly how to ruin them. I smiled now. Well, that was quite a dinner. None of them knew it yet, but they had just made the worst mistake of their lives. The next morning, I woke before dawn. The house was silent. Howard's snoring rumbled faintly from the guest room, a sound like a diesel engine idling. Shannon and Travis would not be up for hours. They never were on weekends, too busy recovering from whatever expensive wine they had opened the night before. I dressed quietly in the darkness of my small room. Dark slacks, a clean shirt, comfortable shoes, the kind of outfit that does not draw attention, the kind an invisible old man would wear. By 6 o'clock, I was walking down Pangrove Lane toward the bus stop. No car, remember? Shannon had taken care of that. But buses run early in Austin, and I had memorized the routes months ago, just in case. James Holland was already waiting at the diner when I arrived. A greasy spoon near the old restaurant district where we used to do business. He looked the same as always. Weathered face, calloused hands, the permanent squint of a man who had spent decades loading trucks in the Texas sun. "Harold." He stood and shook my hand firmly. "You sounded serious on the phone. Everything okay?" I sat down across from him and ordered coffee. Black, no sugar. Some habits you do not break. "No, James, everything is not okay, but it is going to be." I told him everything. The power of attorney, the missing car, the small bedroom, the bourbon dripping down my face while my son watched and said nothing. James listened without interrupting. When I finished, his jaw was tight. "That is elder abuse, Harold. Plain and simple." "I know. That is why I need that lawyer's name." He wrote it on a napkin. "Marcus Wells, an address on Congress Avenue, a phone number. He is the best in Austin for this kind of thing," James said. "Helped my aunt 3 years back when her kids tried to sell her house out from under her. He does not lose." I folded the napkin and put it in my pocket. "Thank you, James. What are you going to do?" I finished my coffee and left money on the table. I am going to remind some people that I am not dead yet. The law offices of Marcus Wells occupied the 12th floor of a glass tower downtown. The elevator was quiet and fast. The receptionist was polite and efficient. Within 20 minutes, I was sitting across from a man in his early 50s with sharp eyes and a sharper suit. "Mr. Bennett," Wells said, leaning back in his leather chair. "Tell me everything." So I did, again. Every detail, every document I had signed, every piece of dignity they had stripped away over 18 months. When I mentioned the power of attorney, his expression hardened. "Do you have a copy of that document?" "They took all my financial papers. I have not seen a bank statement in 8 months. 8 months? He wrote something on his notepad. "Mr. Bennett, what you are describing may constitute financial exploitation of an elderly person under Texas law. That is a serious crime. We are talking potential felony charges. What do I need to do first? We need documentation. Bank records, transaction histories, any evidence of unauthorized transfers?" He paused. "I am going to recommend a private investigator, someone discreet, who can gather information without alerting your son or his wife." "How much will this cost?" Wells named a figure. It was not small, but I had money. They did not know about an old savings account from before the restaurant sale, one I had never mentioned to anyone. "I can manage that." "Good. One more thing, Mr. Bennett." He leaned forward, his eyes holding mine. "From this moment on, you say nothing to them. Nothing about lawyers, investigations, or plans. As far as they are concerned, you are still the confused old man they think you are. Can you do that?" I thought about Howard's smug face, Shannon's giggling, Travis's silence. Mr. Wells, I spent 35 years smiling at customers I wanted to throw out of my restaurant. I can pretend to be whatever they need me to be." He almost smiled. "Then we have an advantage. Let us use it." I took 2 buses home. The sun was setting when I walked up the driveway, painting the house in shades of orange and gold. My house, the one I had bought with money I had earned, the one they were trying to steal. The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside and found Shannon in my bedroom. She was bent over the small dresser by the window, rifling through the bottom drawer, the one where I kept old documents, photos, receipts. Her back was to me, and for a moment I just stood there watching her. "Looking for something?" She spun around, her face cycling through surprise, guilt, and then settling on that familiar, sweet smile. "Harold, you startled me. I was just looking for old photo albums. I thought it would be nice to show Daddy some family pictures." The drawer she had been searching held no photo albums. We both knew that. "Of course, Shannon. How thoughtful of you." She brushed past me, leaving a trail of expensive perfume. I waited until her footsteps faded down the hallway before I looked at the drawer. She had gone through everything. Every folder, every envelope. But the documents she was looking for were not there anymore. I had moved them weeks ago, hidden them in Vernon Carter's garage next door, inside a box labeled Christmas decorations. Old habit from restaurant days. Always keep backup copies of everything. I closed the drawer slowly and smiled to myself. The game had begun. 2 weeks passed. Life in the house settled back into its familiar rhythm of casual cruelty. Shannon ignored me unless she needed something signed. Travis avoided eye contact. Howard had returned to wherever he came from, but his presence lingered like cigarette smoke. That smug laugh, those dismissive waves, the memory of bourbon burning my eyes. I played my role perfectly. The confused old man, the burden, the furniture that had not been moved to storage yet. I shuffled when I walked. I asked questions twice. But underneath that mask, I was working. Rita Morales was a former police detective who now ran her own investigation firm near the university. She was 47, with sharp features, and the kind of steady gaze that made liars uncomfortable. Marcus Wells had recommended her specifically for cases involving financial exploitation. "Mr. Bennett," she said when we met at her office, sliding a manila folder across her desk, "I have preliminary results. You should sit down for this." I was already sitting, but I understood. I opened the folder. Inside were bank statements, my bank statements that I had not seen in months. Highlighted lines showed transfers I had never authorized. In the past 18 months, Rita continued, approximately $127,450 has been moved from your accounts. The transfers are listed as caregiver compensation and household expenses. $127,000. The number sat in my chest like a stone. "Where did the money go?" "Most went to an account in your son's name. Regular transfers, usually between $3,000 and $5,000 at a time." She pulled out another document. "But here is where it gets interesting. $45,000 was transferred to a company called Price Investment Group." I looked up sharply. "That is Howard's company, Shannon's father." Rita nodded. "I did some digging. Price Investment Group is registered in Florida, operates primarily in Texas and Arizona. The company claims to offer exclusive investment opportunities to high-net-worth individuals." She paused. "And, Mr. Bennett, there are 3 active civil lawsuits against that company in Florida. Former clients claiming investment fraud. Total alleged damages exceed $300,000. 3 lawsuits. Howard Price, the big-shot investor who called me a cook, was being sued for fraud. Can you prove any connection between my money and these lawsuits? The financial trail from your accounts to Price Investment Group is documented. What I cannot prove yet is whether your money went to actual investments or into Howard's pocket. That would require deeper investigation. I closed the folder. What do we need now? Evidence of how that power of attorney was obtained. If we can show coercion or undue influence, we can have it invalidated. Everything that followed would become legally actionable. They pressured me, manipulated me, told me it was just for convenience. Did anyone witness you signing it? I thought back to that evening. Travis and Shannon hovering like vultures. The expensive pen. The stack of papers I did not read carefully enough because I trusted my own son. Just them. Rita made a note. We will work with what we have. Document everything from now on. Any conversations, any pressure tactics. There is a voice recorder application on your phone. Use it. Shannon tried to get me to sign something recently. A quitclaim deed for the house. Rita's eyebrows rose sharply. A quitclaim deed. She wanted you to sign away your property rights. She said it was for tax purposes. Mr. Bennett, a quitclaim deed would transfer your ownership permanently. They are trying to take your house while you are still living in it. The stone in my chest grew heavier, but alongside the weight, something else was growing. Something cold and sharp and infinitely patient. That evening, Shannon cornered me in the kitchen. She was dressed for going out. Tight dress, high heels, expensive perfume. Travis stood behind her in the doorway. Harold, we need to talk about that document I showed you. I kept washing dishes. The deed? It is really just a formality. Travis and I are reorganizing some finances, and it would help if the house title was simplified for tax benefits. I dried my hands slowly and turned to face her. Behind those green eyes, I could see the calculator running, adding up my house, my savings, my life. Shannon, I spent 35 years signing contracts with suppliers and vendors. I learned to read every word before I put my name on anything. Her smile flickered. That document would transfer my house, the house I bought, the house I have lived in for 35 years, to you and Travis, permanently. It is not like that, Harold. You are misunderstanding. I picked up the document from the counter, held it up between us. I will think about it. Her face cycled through emotions before settling back into plastic sweetness. Of course, take all the time you need. She left, heels clicking sharply. Travis followed like a trained dog. I stood alone in my kitchen, holding the deed that would have stolen my home. The game was getting interesting, and I was just getting started. Another week passed, and I noticed something changing in the house. Shannon was watching me. Not obviously, she was too clever for that. But I would catch her eyes following me when I walked to the mailbox. I would hear her footsteps pause outside my door when she thought I was sleeping. She would ask casual questions about where I had been, who I had talked to, what I was thinking about. The predator was getting nervous. Good. Travis, we need to talk about your father. I heard her voice through the thin wall between my room and the hallway. It was late evening, and they thought I was asleep. But sleep comes harder these days, and ears that spent decades listening for kitchen timers and customer complaints do not miss much. What about him? Travis's voice was tired, defeated. He is different. Have you not noticed? He is calmer. He goes out without telling us where. He refused to sign the deed. Maybe he is planning something. I can feel it. You need to take control of this situation before he ruins everything we have built. Everything we have built. As if stealing from an old man was some kind of achievement. The next morning, Travis knocked on my door. He was wearing what Shannon probably called his serious conversation outfit. Pressed shirt, concerned expression, rehearsed sincerity. "Dad, can we talk?" I was sitting by the window, pretending to read a magazine about fishing that I had no interest in. Part of the act. "Of course, son. Come in." He sat on the edge of my narrow bed, hands clasped between his knees. For a moment, he almost looked like the boy who used to help me in the kitchen. Almost. "I have been worried about you, Dad. We both have." "Have you? You seem confused lately, disoriented. Shannon mentioned you have been leaving the house without telling anyone where you're going." "I am 68, Travis. Not 8. I do not need permission to take a walk." His jaw tightened. "That is not what I meant. It is just, we have noticed some concerning behavior, memory issues, confusion about dates and times." I kept my face blank, but inside I was laughing. Memory issues. I could tell him exactly how much they had stolen from me, down to the last dollar. I could recite every conversation I had recorded on my phone. I could describe in precise detail every lie Shannon had told me in the past 18 months. But I did not. Instead, I let my eyes go slightly unfocused, let my shoulders slump. Played the part they wanted to see. I do not know what you mean, Travis. Am I forgetting things?" Relief flickered across his face. This was the father he expected. The confused old man. The easy target. "It is okay, Dad. It happens as we get older. But Shannon and I think it might be good if we took some precautions for your own safety." "What kind of precautions?" "We are thinking about talking to a doctor, getting you evaluated, maybe looking into some options for managing your affairs more formally. Guardianship?" They were talking about guardianship, taking away my legal rights entirely, making me a ward of the state, or worse, a ward of them. I nodded slowly, letting confusion cloud my features. "If you think that is best, son, you know I trust you." The guilt that crossed his face was almost satisfying. Almost? Meanwhile, Rita Morales was digging deeper. We met at her office 3 days later, and the folder she slid across her desk was thicker than before. "Price Investment Group is worse than we thought," she said. "Howard has not paid rent on his office in 5 months. He owes the building management $23,500. They are about to start eviction proceedings. So, the successful businessman is broke. Worse, he has been collecting money from new investors to pay returns to older ones. Classic pyramid structure. It is not sustainable. He is running out of new marks." She paused. "Mr. Bennett, your $45,000. It probably went straight into someone else's pocket. Howard Price is not investing anything. He is just moving money around until the whole thing collapses." I thought about Howard pouring bourbon on my face, about his condescending smile, about how he called me a cook while his entire business was built on lies and stolen dreams. What happens when it collapses? People go to prison if they are caught, and if someone were to help the authorities catch him. Rita's eyes met mine. That would depend on what evidence that someone could provide. That evening, Travis found me in the living room. Shannon was hovering in the doorway, arms crossed, watching. "Dad, we have made an appointment for you. A cognitive evaluation. It is scheduled for next week." I looked up from my magazine. "A what?" "A memory test, just to see where you're at. It is nothing to worry about." I nodded slowly. "If you think it is best, son, for my own good." "Exactly. For your own good." He left the room, and Shannon followed. I heard their voices in the kitchen. Low, pleased, confident. They had no idea. I pulled out my phone and dialed Marcus Wells. "They are moving faster," I said. "Scheduled a cognitive evaluation. They are building a case for guardianship. Then we move faster, too. I will have the paperwork ready. The moment you pass that evaluation, and you will pass it, we strike. The morning of the evaluation, I woke before dawn. I dressed carefully. Clean clothes, combed hair, polished shoes. The kind of appearance that said mentally competent. The kind of appearance that would make a doctor think twice before signing away someone's freedom. The clinic was in a medical complex near downtown. Travis drove, another reminder that they had taken my car. Shannon stayed home, probably rehearsing her concerned daughter-in-law routine for later. Dr. Patricia Chen was a neurologist in her late 40s, with kind eyes in a no-nonsense manner. She spent 2 hours with me. Memory tests, cognitive assessments, questions about dates, names, current events, mathematical reasoning. I answered everything correctly. Not perfectly. I did not want to seem superhuman, but well within normal range for a 68-year-old man. When we finished, she looked at me with something like respect. "Mr. Bennett, I am going to be direct with you. Your cognitive function is excellent, better than many patients half your age. Whatever concerns your family has expressed, they are not supported by any medical evidence. So I am not losing my mind. Not according to any test I can administer. I will be filing my report today." I shook her hand. "Thank you, doctor. You have no idea how much this means." Outside, Travis was waiting in the car. His face was tense, expectant. How did it go? Fine, I think. The doctor seemed nice. Did she say anything about the results? She said she would send a report. He nodded, but I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. He had been so sure I would fail. So sure that this would be the final nail in my coffin of independence. He had no idea what was coming. That same afternoon, Marcus Wells filed 2 documents with the Travis County courts. The first was a petition to revoke the power of attorney, citing evidence of undue influence and financial exploitation. The second was a formal complaint to Adult Protective Services, requesting an investigation into elder abuse. I was not there when the papers were served, but I wish I had been. Shannon called Travis at work. Travis called Shannon back. Both of them tried calling me, but I did not answer. I was sitting on Vernon Carter's porch next door, drinking iced tea and watching the chaos unfold through his front window. "They look upset," Vernon said, sipping his own tea. He was 73, a retired electrician who had lived next door for 15 years. He had seen Shannon arrive. He had watched the house transform from my home into their territory. And he had agreed to be a witness when the time came. They should be. By evening, they were waiting for me in the living room, both of them. Shannon's face was pale, her makeup slightly smeared. She had been crying, or pretending to. Travis looked like a man who had just watched his retirement plan catch fire. "Dad?" Travis stood up when I walked in. "We need to talk about these papers we received." "What papers?" "From a lawyer, saying you are accusing us of—" He could not finish the sentence. Shannon stepped forward, her voice trembling with manufactured emotion. "Harold, this is a misunderstanding. We would never hurt you. We are family." I looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman who had called me a worthless old fool. Who had laughed while her father poured bourbon in my face. Who had tried to steal my house with a quitclaim deed disguised as tax paperwork. "Family," I repeated. "We can fix this. Just call your lawyer. Tell him it was a mistake. We can work this out together, the way families do." I sat down in my armchair. The one Howard had claimed during his visit. The one I had not sat in for months. It felt good to take it back. "Travis," I said, You had 18 months to talk to me like a human being. 18 months to ask how I was doing, to check if I was happy, to treat me like your father instead of an obstacle. Instead, you took my bedroom. You took my car. You took $127,000 from my accounts. And when your father-in-law poured bourbon in my face, you sat there and watched. His face went gray. Shannon's hand flew to her mouth. Now it is my turn to talk, and I will be talking through my lawyers. The doorbell rang. Shannon flinched. Travis looked at the door like it might explode. I did not move. That will be your father, Shannon. He called earlier. Said he was coming to sort this out. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder application. I am looking forward to hearing what he has to say. Howard Price stormed through the door without waiting for anyone to open it. His face was red, his fists clenched, his expensive shirt untucked from his pants. "What is this nonsense?" he roared. "Some kind of shakedown? You think you can threaten my family?" I held up my phone. The red recording light was clearly visible. "Good evening, Howard. I am documenting this conversation for my legal records. Please continue." He stopped mid-stride. His eyes went to the phone, then to my face, then to the phone again. "You are recording me?" Texas is a one-party consent state. I am allowed to record any conversation I am part of. I smiled. Something I learned from my lawyer. Please tell me more about how this is a shakedown. I am sure Adult Protective Services will find it fascinating. Howard's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. Shannon looked like she was going to be sick. Travis had sat down heavily on the couch, head in his hands. "Now," I said, still smiling. "Does anyone else have anything they would like to say for the record?" Silence. "Good. Then I will be in my room. The small one in the back. The one you put me in when you decided I did not matter anymore." I walked past them, phone still recording, and did not look back. The weeks that followed were the quietest the house had seen since Travis and Shannon moved in. They avoided me, not subtly like before. This was deliberate, careful avoidance. Shannon no longer floated through the house, commenting on everything I did. Travis stopped making small talk about weather or work. They spoke in whispers behind closed doors, and the tension hung in the air like smoke after a kitchen fire. I did not mind. I had other things to occupy my time. The Adult Protective Services investigation moved faster than I had expected. Within 2 weeks, a caseworker named Mistress Patterson had reviewed all of Rita's documentation. The bank statements, the unauthorized transfers, the pattern of isolation and control. "Mr. Bennett," she said, sliding a folder across her desk, "our preliminary findings support your claims. We have identified $127,450 in unauthorized transfers. The court has issued a temporary freeze on your son's bank accounts pending further investigation. Frozen accounts." Travis would not be able to touch a penny until this was resolved. What happens next? We will be forwarding our findings to the district attorney's office. Financial exploitation of an elderly person is a felony in Texas. If charges are filed, your son could face up to 10 years in prison. 10 years? My own son. I thought I would feel triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. But not too tired to see this through. But there was more. Rita Morales had been busy. We met at her office the following day. The folder she placed in front of me was the thickest yet, nearly an inch of documents and financial records. "Price Investment Group," she said. "It is worse than we thought. Howard Price has been running a Ponzi scheme. He takes money from new investors, uses it to pay fake returns to earlier investors, and pockets the difference. Total victims, 14 people. Total damages, $890,000. $890,000, almost $1 million. But here is what will interest you most. Rita pulled out a photograph. Two men, both in their 70s, standing outside the American Legion Post 76. I recognized them immediately. Walter Simmons and Eugene Brooks, two of my poker buddies. Walter and Eugene, they invested with Price Investment Group. Walter lost $42,000. Eugene lost $35,000. They are both on fixed incomes. Walter has been selling his tools to make rent. My hands tightened on the chair. Walter and Eugene, good men who had served their country, men who trusted a smooth talker with their life savings, and Howard Price had stolen their retirement while calling me a worthless cook. I want these materials sent to the district attorney, I said. Already done. I also sent copies to the FBI. Price's victims span 3 states, Florida, Texas, and Arizona. That makes it federal. Howard Price did not know it yet, but a storm was coming. And when it hit, it would sweep away everything he had built on lies. Meanwhile, Shannon tried a new approach. She appeared at my door one evening with a cup of coffee and her most winning smile. Her eyes were slightly red. She had been crying, or wanted me to think she had. "Harold, can we talk?" I looked at the coffee. "Is it poisoned?" Her smile flickered. "That is not funny." "Neither was the bourbon your father poured on my face. But please come in." She sat on the edge of my bed, the same spot Travis had occupied when he tried to convince me I was losing my mind. "I know we have had our differences," she began. "But this lawsuit, these accusations, it is tearing our family apart. Travis is beside himself. He barely sleeps anymore. He loves you, Harold. He never wanted to get caught." "There is a difference. We made mistakes. I admit that. But we were trying to help you. You were trying to steal everything I had." Her mask slipped, a flash of cold calculation behind those green eyes. Then it was back. "We can make this right. Drop the lawsuit. Call off the investigation. We will pay back whatever you think we owe. Just let us handle this as a family." I sipped my coffee. It was actually good. She must have used the expensive beans. "Shannon, do you know what I learned from running a restaurant? How to spot a bad deal. And this is a very bad deal." My phone rang. Rita's number. "Excuse me," I said. "I need to take this." I stepped into the hallway, leaving Shannon sitting on my bed with her coffee. "Mr. Bennett," Rita said, "your daughter-in-law, Shannon, before she married your son, she was married to someone else, a man named Daniel Whitmore from Arizona. They divorced 6 years ago. I did not know that. Neither did your son, I suspect. Before their divorce, Daniel Whitmore transferred all of his assets to Shannon. His house, his savings, his retirement accounts, everything. 3 months later, she filed for divorce and left with all of it." I leaned against the wall. "So she has done this before." Daniel Whitmore is still paying off debts from that marriage. He lives in a trailer park outside Phoenix. I looked back at my room, where Shannon was still sitting, probably wondering what I was hearing. "Rita," I said quietly, "find everything you can on that divorce. Everything." A month passed, and then the dominoes started falling. It began with a phone call from Marcus Wells. His voice was tight with controlled excitement. "Mr. Bennett, the Travis County District Attorney has opened a criminal investigation into Howard Price, securities fraud, wire fraud, and theft from elderly victims. Based on the scope of the allegations, the FBI has also opened a parallel federal investigation." "When will they move?" "Soon. They are building an airtight case. When Howard Price goes down, He is going down hard. 3 days later, I was sitting on Vernon's porch when 2 black SUVs pulled up to Howard's office building across town. I was not there to see it, but Rita called me with the details. They arrested him at his desk, she said. 2 FBI agents, 3 local detectives. He tried to run for the back door. Did not get far. What about bail? Judge set it at $500,000. Howard does not have it. He has been living off investor money for months. There is nothing left in his personal accounts. Howard Price, the big shot investor who called me a worthless cook, was sitting in a jail cell. I tried to feel sympathy. I could not find any. The news hit Shannon like a freight train. I heard her screaming from downstairs, a raw, ugly sound that echoed through the house. Travis tried to calm her down, but she was beyond calming. "They are going to make me testify," she shrieked, "against my own father. They will subpoena me, put me on the stand. Make me." "Shannon, please. This is his fault. I heard footsteps pounding up the stairs. This is all that old man's fault." My door flew open. Shannon stood in the doorway, her face blotchy with tears, her perfectly styled hair in disarray. "You did this," she hissed. "You destroyed my family." I looked up from the jazz magazine I had been reading. Miles Davis this time. A retrospective on Kind of Blue. "I did not destroy anything, Shannon. I just stopped letting you destroy me." She took a step forward. Her hands were shaking, her whole body vibrating with rage. "You think you have won? You think this is over? My father has lawyers. Good lawyers. He will beat these charges, and when he does—" "Your father's lawyers quit this morning," Rita told me. Apparently, they realized they were not going to get paid. Her face went white. "That is a lie. Call and check. I will wait." She did not call. She knew I was not lying. That night, Travis came to see me. It was late, well past midnight, and he had been drinking. I could smell the whiskey from across the room. "Dad." He stood in my doorway, swaying slightly. His tie was loosened, his shirt untucked. He looked like a man watching his life collapse around him. "Travis, I did not know." His voice cracked. "About Howard? About the scheme? Shannon told me he was legitimate, a real investor. I believed her." "Did you believe her when she told you to take my car? When she convinced you to move me to the smallest room in my own house? When you transferred thousands of dollars from my accounts without asking?" He flinched at each question, as if I were hitting him. "I thought she said it was for the best, that you would be happier with us managing things, that you were getting old, confused." "I was never confused, Travis. I was betrayed by my own son." He started to cry, then ugly, drunken sobs that shook his shoulders. Part of me wanted to comfort him. Part of me remembered the boy who had helped me in the kitchen, who had laughed at burned gravy and asked me to teach him about brisket. But a larger part remembered him sitting silent while Howard poured bourbon on my face, remembered the eager-to-please expression when Shannon handed him papers to make me sign, remembered 18 months of casual cruelty disguised as care. "Dad, I am sorry. I am so sorry. Please, can we just—" "You knew enough, Travis. You knew what you were doing was wrong, and you did it anyway because it was easier than standing up to your wife." He wiped his face with the back of his hand. "What do I do now?" "That is not my problem anymore." He left without another word. The next morning, I woke to an empty house. Shannon's closet was half empty. Her jewelry box was gone. Her car was not in the driveway. Travis was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. When he saw me, his face crumpled. "She is gone. Left sometime before dawn. I woke up and she was just gone." Where? I do not know. She took her passport. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down across from him. They found her car at the airport, he said, but she did not book any flights. She must have, I do not know, rental car, bus, something, running. Shannon was running from the investigation, from the subpoenas, from the life she had built on other people's money. I thought about Daniel Whitmore and his trailer park in Phoenix. I thought about Walter and Eugene selling their tools to pay rent. I thought about every person Howard and Shannon had used and discarded over the years. The police will find her, I said. They always do. Travis looked up at me with something like hope in his eyes. Dad, when this is over, could we maybe start again? Be a family again? I took a long sip of my coffee. I do not know, Travis. I honestly do not know. But I knew the answer was probably no. The months that followed were a slow unraveling. They found Shannon in Florida, hiding at her mother's house in a small town outside Jacksonville. She had taken a bus from Austin to Houston, then another to New Orleans, then rented a car under a fake name. It took the authorities 3 weeks to track her down. Rita called me with the news. She is being extradited back to Texas. The federal prosecutor wants her as a witness in Howard's trial, and there is talk of filing charges against her as well. Accessory to fraud, conspiracy. They are still building the case. I did not feel joy. I did not feel satisfaction. I just felt tired. And something that might have been relief. Meanwhile, my civil case against Travis moved through the courts with surprising speed. Marcus Wells was relentless, presenting document after document. Bank statements, transfer records, the voice recordings I had made, Vernon's witness testimony about the conditions I had been living under. The judge ruled in my favor on every count. The power of attorney was declared invalid due to undue influence. Travis was ordered to return $127,450, plus interest and legal fees, a total of $143,000. Travis did not have that kind of money. He never had. He will have to liquidate assets, Wells explained. His share of any property, investments, retirement accounts. If Shannon files for divorce, and she will, to protect whatever she has left, there will be a division of marital assets. Half of whatever they have goes to her, half to him. His half comes to you. Shannon filed for divorce 2 weeks later. It was mutual destruction now. She blamed him for not protecting her father. He blamed her for dragging him into this mess. Their lawyers circled each other like sharks. I watched from a distance, feeling nothing. The house was quiet now. Travis had moved out, staying with a friend from work while he sorted through the wreckage of his life. I had my home back. All 4 bedrooms, the kitchen, the back porch with the pecan trees. I moved back into the master bedroom for the first time in nearly 2 years. The first night I slept there, I dreamed about nothing at all. It was the best sleep I had had in 18 months. As summer turned to fall, the legal pieces continued falling into place. Howard's trial was scheduled for early winter. The federal charges were serious. Wire fraud, securities fraud, theft from elderly victims. The prosecution had 14 victims lined up to testify, including Walter and Eugene from my poker group. Walter had cried when I told him about the case. I thought I was done for, he said. Thought I would have to sell the house, move in with my daughter, and all because I trusted that smooth-talking snake. You will get your money back, I said, or at least some of it. The FBI are going after Howard's assets. It is not about the money anymore, Harold. It is about knowing someone finally stopped him. Travis came by the house one afternoon, unannounced. He looked different, thinner, older, with dark circles under his eyes. He stood on the porch where Howard had once parked his silver Mercedes and looked at me like a stranger. "Dad, I need to talk to you." "Then talk." "I am losing everything. The divorce, the judgment, the legal fees. By the time it is all done, I will have nothing left. My credit is destroyed. I might lose my job when this gets out." I waited. I know I do not deserve it. I know what I did was wrong. But you are my father. I am asking you, begging you. Please, can we work something out? A payment plan? A reduced settlement? Anything. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. The boy who had helped me in the kitchen was gone forever. In his place was a man who had chosen easy money over basic decency, who had watched his father be humiliated and done nothing, who had signed papers he knew were wrong because his wife told him to. Travis, I spent 35 years building something from nothing. I worked 18-hour days. I missed holidays, birthdays, vacations. I did it so I would have something to leave behind. Something for you. His eyes filled with tears. And you tried to take it all, not because you needed it, but because you thought I was too old to stop you. Dad, the judgment stands. Pay what you owe. I closed the door. The week before the holiday, Howard's lawyer called me. I did not know why. I had nothing to do with the criminal case, but I took the call anyway. "Mr. Bennett, my client would like to discuss a possible arrangement." "What kind of arrangement?" "Howard is prepared to cooperate with federal prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence. Part of that cooperation involves providing testimony about his daughter's involvement in various financial irregularities." I laughed. I could not help it. He wants to testify against Shannon. He wants to protect himself. If that means implicating others who were involved in his business practices, he is prepared to do so. Howard Price, the man who had poured bourbon in my face and called me worthless, was willing to throw his own daughter under the bus to save himself. "Mr. Bennett, are you still there?" "I am here. I am just appreciating the irony." "Is that a yes to a meeting?" "No. Howard made his choices. Now he lives with them. So does Shannon." I hung up the phone and sat for a long moment in my quiet house. The holiday was coming, and for the first time in years, I was actually looking forward to it. The morning of the holiday, I woke at 5 o'clock. Old habits. But this time, it was not because someone else controlled my schedule. This time, it was because I had a turkey to prepare. I stood in my kitchen, and laid out the ingredients: the brine, the herbs, the butter I had been softening overnight. The same recipe I had used for 40 years. The one my father had taught me before he passed. The house was quiet, but not empty quiet, not lonely quiet. It was peaceful. By noon, the turkey was in the oven. I had set the table myself. The good china, the cloth napkins, the centerpiece I had picked up from the farmer's market. 8 place settings, not 3 like last year. 8. Vernon and his wife Martha arrived first. She brought a green bean casserole. He brought a bottle of wine and a firm handshake. "Smells like heaven in here, Harold." "Wait until you taste it." Walter and Eugene came next, with Eugene's sister and her husband. They had both testified at Howard's trial the week before. The jury was still deliberating, but the prosecutor was confident. 15 counts, Walter said, settling into a chair. 15 counts of fraud and theft. Even if he beats half of them, he's looking at years. Good. More guests arrived. Friends from the restaurant days, neighbors I had reconnected with after Travis and Shannon left. By 2 o'clock, the house was full of laughter and conversation, and the smell of roasting turkey. I stood at the head of my table and looked at the faces around me. These were people who had known me for decades. People who had eaten at my restaurant. played poker at my table, watched me build something, and then watched it get torn away. And now they were here to help me celebrate getting it back. "Before we eat," I said, "I want to say something." The room went quiet. A year ago, I sat at the same table with my son, his wife, and her father. They had taken my bedroom, my car, my money. They had convinced themselves I was too old and confused to notice what they were doing. And then Howard Price poured bourbon in my face and told me to know my place. I paused, looking around at my guests. I found my place. It is right here, in my home, with people who actually care about me. I raised my glass. To family, the real kind. To family, they echoed, and we drank. The meal was everything I had hoped it would be. The turkey was perfect. Crispy skin, moist meat. The herb butter I had massaged under the skin, creating flavors that made people close their eyes in appreciation. The sides were a symphony of textures and tastes. And for dessert, I brought out my pecan pie, the one that used to draw customers to Bennett's Southern table from across the state. After dinner, as the guests lingered over coffee and conversation, Vernon pulled me aside. "You did good, Harold. Real good. I had help. You had courage. That is not the same thing." I thought about the year that had passed, the lawyers, the investigators, the court dates, the sleepless nights, and the moments of doubt. The look on Shannon's face when she realized her father's lawyers had quit. The sound of Travis crying in my doorway. It had not been easy, but it had been necessary. The guests left as the sun was setting, warm with good food and better company. I stood on the porch and waved as the last car pulled away, then went inside to start cleaning up. That is when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered anyway. "Dad." "Travis?" His voice was hoarse, broken. "Travis, I do not know what to do. Shannon is gone. The divorce is final. I had to sell everything to pay the judgment. I am staying in a motel and Dad, I cannot afford rent. I cannot afford anything. I was hoping maybe I could come home just for a while, just until I get back on my feet." I stood in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, and looked at the empty chairs around my table. The ones where Travis and Shannon and Howard had sat a year ago, plotting how to take everything I had. "Travis," I said, "do you remember what Shannon said to me right after her father poured bourbon in my face?" Silence. She said, "Know your place, worthless old fool." "Dad, I found my place. I am standing in it right now. It is my house, my kitchen, my life." I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line, waiting, hoping. "Now you need to find yours." I ended the call. For a long moment, I stood there in the quiet. Then I poured myself a cup of coffee, walked out to the back porch, and sat down in my favorite chair. The pecan trees were bare now, their branches dark against the evening sky. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear children laughing. A neighbor's grandkids probably running off their holiday dinner. I sipped my coffee and let the peace wash over me. A year ago, I had been a prisoner in my own home, a burden. Furniture that had not been moved to storage yet. They had taken my money, my dignity, my belief that family meant something. Now Howard Price was awaiting sentencing on 15 federal charges. Shannon was back in Florida, working as a waitress, trying to rebuild a life from the ashes of her schemes. And Travis was learning what it felt like to have nothing. To start over with empty pockets and a ruined reputation. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel vengeful. I just felt free. The phone buzzed once more, a text this time from Vernon. "Great dinner, Harold. Same time next year." I smiled and typed back, would not miss it. Then I put the phone away, leaned back in my chair, and watched the stars come out over Austin. I had found my place, and it was exactly where I belonged. If you like this story, subscribe to our new channel, Cold Revenge, as this one will soon cease to exist. You can find a link to the new channel in the collaboration section of this video, in the description, or in the comments. Subscribe so you do not lose us and can continue listening to interesting stories about revenge. Thank you for your attention.